Hello and welcome to another flying video, FSX video with flight level 180. Today we are flying the Embraer 175. This is a regional jet, highly automated, super impressive airplane. We are going to be flying the introduction flight from the FeelThere manual. This is the official flight that they provide in the manual, and we're going to try to walk through it and figure out some of the problems and issues with this flight. I think you're going to love this. It's going to teach you so much about this airplane, and if you aren't already an expert pilot or an instrument pilot or an expert in FSX, you're going to learn a lot about how to fly an airplane with a super automated system. It's great. It's really a good exercise. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. The first thing you need to know, here's the airplane. It's on Steam. It's $25, typical price. You can get it on sale every once in a while. I think it's a very good price solely for the manual that comes with this and the documents that come with it, because it's just that good. So if you haven't bought it and you're going to buy it, just go ahead and buy it. And then the next thing you need to do is you need to actually load the configuration tool. And the way to do that is you start your Steam client, then you go to Library Tools, and then you go to, you can see the first item that's white there on the list is the EJets configuration tool. You want to right click on that, install, then right click again and say play game. And what that does is it brings up this guy right here, which is, it's just a configuration tool, nothing fancy, but it's very important to get the airplane configured correctly. Copy my settings. But the most important things is you want to choose the 175 LR, 70 passengers, 20% cargo. And if you want to fly the 195, that's fine. Just set the general settings about the same, about that 10% cargo and, almost full with passengers. And then most importantly, you want to write down the zero fuel weight if you're using 195. So let's go back to the 175. Last thing you want to do, leave everything else other than these things that I'm telling you about the same. Go to dark and cold in the cockpit. Go ahead and hit OK. That closes it. And then go ahead and start Flight Simulator. If you've already got it running, you've got to restart it. Power it down, start it up again. Now, once you get into the game, and these are the directions they give us. I don't really understand them completely, why these are necessary, but this is what they ask for. Choose the default Cessna 172. Any of them is fine. For your location, you select KIAD as airport ID, gate D16 small, and then for your time and season, do day. You don't want to do night. It's going to be pain for you. For current weather, you want to use clear skies. You don't want to mess with weather for your first time through. Now for fuel, leave it as it is. A little bit of fuel, a lot of fuel. You just need some fuel. For flight planner, you want KIAD as your departure, KRDU as your destination, VFR, direct GPS, find route, hit OK to save, and save the file. Okay? Then go ahead and hit fly now. Now, I'm sure you notice I have user-defined weather. What I did is I entered, I added a very thick cloud layer over the airport that is 200 feet AGL. So basically, all the way down to minimums, we can't see anything. And then once we land, we are going to, basically come out, declare, see, we don't have to go miss. We're going to see the runway right above the ground, and then we're going to land. It's a great experience to actually do that, to see if we can land this airplane correctly through IMC into an ILS in a low visibility situation. So what I did there is I used the center mouse wheel to turn off the airplane. We're giving it about 10-15 seconds. Then once it's done, you go here to aircraft, select aircraft. And here we go. We're going to do a publisher FeelThere. There's a 175. You can see I have a lot of FeelThere. And double click, and there's the airplane. And you hope that it's correct. Looks good. Sometimes half the systems are on and half are off. It's buggy. I don't know why. If that happens, just go ahead and start again. So let's go ahead and rip through this quickly. Shift 2 to bring up the overhead panel. Batteries on. ELT, emergency light on. APU, we're going to use the mouse wheel to go over to start and start up the ELT, or start up the APU. You can see here's the APU at 0%. And you're going to see that start spooling up in a moment. There it goes. Now, one thing I like about these FeelThere planes a lot, let's turn off the beeping, is they come, let's turn this off and hit Shift 6. It brings, not that, Shift 5. It brings up this these walkthroughs. So this is the Copilot reads you the settings you need to have, and you can follow along and set everything correctly. So, and if you don't have things right, he'll wait until you actually set it correctly. One thing that drives me nuts though is it's extremely slow. It's very, very slow paced, and so I typically don't use it. What I did is I went through for this document and wrote down everything you need to know. So just follow along with me, and I'll tell you what's in the checklist that you need. Okay. So the first couple checklists tell you need the battery, the LT, the APU on, the nav lights on, logo lights on. And that is good. Then we're going to go down to the panel down here. We're going to hit the plan soft key twice. We're going to turn on WPT ident, and we're going to turn on vertical profile. So that's for the planning purposes. Now, we're going to set our range to, and you notice this is a touch screen. You can actually go and click directly on this. So we're going to set our range for 150 just so we can see what we're doing here. And we need to give it a few seconds to get rolling. Okay, so next thing we need to do is we're going to bring up, let's close this window and bring up our MCDU, which is Shift 3. And this is the flight management computer, flight management system. Basically, the entire flight we're going to be working on this. First thing we need to do is initialize. It says no present position. We need to initialize our location. So you hit nav. We're going to hit the next page and go to pause init. And then we're going to hit the GPS key, which is here. And that loads it and then hits load. And then boom, now we're good. Now we've got our position set up on the NFS, and we can go ahead and start setting up our flight plan. Next thing we do is we hit flight plan, and we're going to enter our destination airport. And the destination is going to be KRDU. And you click destination. Now we've got that in. Now we enter our waypoints. The first waypoint is going to be Hafner, H-A-F-N-R, H-A-F-N-R, click, and next one is G-V Echo, click, and then KRDU, and there's two ways to load that. You can type it in here, or you can click here, it loads into the scratch pad, and you click there. So now we have a complete flight plan, and you see how it's dotted lines? That means it's not active yet. You click activate, and now it's actually programmed, the FMS is programmed to follow that. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the departure information. And we are going to depart from 1 left. And this is not an active SID anymore, so we're not going to use that. We're going to hit insert, and then we're going to go ahead and activate it. Now we're going to go to our nav key, and we're going to choose arrival. And we know we're going to fly a standard arrival, a star, into KRDU. So let's go ahead and enter that in. So it's SBV4, and the transition is GVE. And we're going to go ahead and insert that, and you can see it inserted on the flight plan, and we're going to activate it. And looking good. I strongly recommend you print out the document or have it next to you on a iPad or Android just to actually be able to follow along with this. Now, let me show you something else that comes in this package that's extremely helpful. FeelThere gives you real-world flight charts. Now, disclaimer, this is not a real... This is an old flight chart. You should not use it for real-world navigation. It's not going to be current. Do not use it. Do not use anything in this video for real-world navigation. This is for entertainment purposes only. Now, that said, this is a real-world chart. So this is something you can go and pull these charts off the internet and find something that looks exactly like this if you search for South Boston for arrival. Probably slightly different. But this is, if you understand what's on here, you can actually understand a good part of how to fly instrument approaches. So very important if you're going to become a real-world pilot or to take full advantage of FSX. So if you look there at Billa, which is right there, that is one of the points on the approach as you're approaching Raleigh Durham. And you notice below it says at or below 9,000 feet right there. that is our crossing restriction. So we need to go ahead and plug that into the flight data computer. So let's do that. So 9,000. And it's not visible on the page there, so let's go to the next page. There it is, Billa. So you hit 9,000, it's in the scratch pad, you hit that, boom. Now we have a descent restriction there where we're gonna be at that altitude when we get to Billa, okay? So let's go ahead and activate that change. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn off this chart for the moment. We'll get back to it in a bit. So let's go to Performance Init. So we're going to Performance Init. And you notice here our cruise power is long range cruise. Well, it's such a short flight, let's burn some fuel. So we're gonna hit OR and we're gonna go max speed. So now that sets max speed. Next thing we're gonna do is there's no fuel reserve set. So let's go ahead and do that. We're gonna need an MBAA minimum of 60 minutes. So let's go ahead and punch in 60, clear that out. Hit 60 minutes, now we have a 60-minute fuel reserve. Now, you notice the cruise altitude is optimum. We're going to set it to 220 because that's what we've been given in our flight plan. And that's done. And our zero fuel weight, this is what we wrote down earlier. So it's 63260. 260. Zero fuel weight. And then we hit confirm init. And now we have a flight plan that's pretty much complete. Okay, so now the last thing we need to do is it's telling us reserve fuel. So do we have the right amount of fuel in the tanks? Well, it says down here we have 10,270. Well, is that enough or not? Who knows? So let's go ahead and make sure we have the right amount of fuel. So we're going to go perf init. You can go perf and perf init too. That's another way to get there. And let's go to page 3. So page 3, it says 3 of 3 up there. Fuel 10280. There's a cheat that they give us here. So hit clear to clear this out, and then hit FUEL and click fuel. And that actually sets in here the amount of fuel we need. And look down there, 73430. So it matches there. It actually loaded the amount of fuel we need into the wing tanks. Pretty cool. I think PMDG has a very similar function. So let's go ahead and set some of our performance data. So let's go to perf data and let's go to takeoff, and we're going to go to the next page. You notice the density altitude is here. Very important. In the document that comes with this airplane, there is a whole chart that shows you the how to calculate your V speeds. Pull it up at your own time. I wrote down the information. It's actually in the walkthrough here, and it's correct. But if you fly with something other than standard pressures or different weights or such forth, you're going to need to read that puppy. So let's go to the next page, and we're going to enter our V speeds here. So it's 126 for V1. Our rotation speed is 135. Our single engine climb speed is 140. And our VFS, which is final segment of departure with one power plant failed, is 189. And that is done. So you can look over here and you can see those speeds are here. And as we get up the speed tape, you're going to see the bugs there. So we're done with that. So let's go to flight plan. And that is looking good. So the next thing we're going to want to do, let's slide this puppy over here. And we're going to go ahead and configure the autopilot settings and such forth. So one thing I recommend you do is use Shift 1. It's not necessary. It's the 2D cockpit. This is a little bit hard to read. So what you can do is on this click spot on the 2D cockpit right there, you click that and it brings up a nice version. Let's close this out. Shift 3. And you can actually read everything. So pressure is 2992. That's correct. Standard is 2992. Notice how everything is green here. That means we're in radio navigation mode. We're going to want to navigate with the FMS. So let's click FMS. So you notice everything is magenta now. And the FMS is going to basically control everything. You'll see. Now we're going to want to turn on the flight director, which is a little bit buggy, but we'll deal with that. We're going to turn on our heading bug, set our heading bug to 0 and 1. It's over here. We want it to 0, 11. Well, the nice thing is our airplane's already pointed there. So let's go ahead and use the trick of center clicking here, which moves it to 0, 1, 1. So that's done. Speed knob. Now, this is one of the major bugs in the manual. on right above the speed knob, there is a hotspot that you can click. It's right there. See where it says manual FMS speed selection? Well, our speed is set to 250. If I click this, like they tell us to do, it sets our speed to the FMS speed of 151. Well, I'm rotating at 139 and you want me to climb out at 151? That seems a little tight for me. So I'm going to strongly recommend that you do this. Click this back to blue and bump up to 180. Okay, we don't want to be climbing out at 151. So that's dealt with. So next thing, we want the auto throttle on. So here's auto throttle. You notice here it's blank. I'm going to click it. Boom, there's auto throttle. Now we're going to hit the hidden toggle click point. So if you go there, notice it says toga. So watch down here. I'm going to click that, and now it's in takeoff mode. Now our altitude is 220. That's set correctly. And that looks good. Is there anything else we need to do here? Now they tell us that we need to set the altitude setting for A select. And that is, let's see if we can figure out how to get that set. I think we're actually good. I think when we turn on A nav, we're gonna get that set correctly. So let's just stick with that, and we can mess with it as we need. Okay, A select. Just want to, oh, I know it. So they hit this and that, and there, altitude select is chosen. Okay, so that is what we want. And then when we hit V, we're going to hit VNav when we take off, and that's going to go correctly. Now note, I clicked this 2 times. If you click it once, it says goes into hold mode, which is wrong. You do not want that. If when you turn on the autopilot, it's going to try to hold, if you're at 1,000 feet AGL, it's going to try to hold 1,000 feet AGL. That is not what you want. You want it to be altitude select, so click it twice. So another big bug of the manual. So let's set this up. So in the map key, we're going to turn on airports, we're going to turn on progress, and we're going to turn on TCAS. Now you notice over here, TCAS is off. They do not tell you in the walkthrough how to turn that on. It's actually in the document hidden. I'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. But it's a bit of a bummer they don't tell you how to do that. Okay, now in this, they tell you that you should turn on weather also. Another bug with the manual, there's no weather on this airplane as far as I can tell. There's no weather radar. On my previous videos, on the 135 and 145 LR, there is a weather radar. I haven't played with it much, but this airplane doesn't have it. Now they tell us, we're getting near the end here, they want us to set the pitch in the elevator for 6 degrees. Notice down here, this should be configured on your joystick. If it's not, set it up and figure out how to do that with your mapping, because this is super important. I like about 4.5. 6% is way too much. Okay, let's keep rolling here. On shift 4 brings up your throttle quadrant, the center quadrant. They want you to turn on the marker, the audio marker, and this is important because we're going to use this for navigation, both on takeoff and landing. So it's that little button right there. You click it, and we'll get a beeping when we go over the inner and the outer markings. Okay. Outer markers. Now we're going to do the before start checklist. We're going to pretend like we did that. We're going to turn this off with shift 4. Turn on the passenger signs. Let's turn this off. We don't need this for the moment. Passenger signs on. Red beacon on. Hydraulic pump A on. That's clicking here. Click. And we're going to turn on our TCAS. So, and to turn that on, you're going to hit shift 3. And one thing that surprised me when I first pulled up this airplane the first time, there's no radio stack. But if you go here on the FMS, there's the radio. Notice it says TARA. You're going to click that for TARA. And you notice here it says TA only. So let's go ahead and fix that. We're going to go here, check those two, and then down here you can actually use the mouse roller to go to above. And the reason we want above is because we're going to be ascending and we want to know what's above us. So let's get the TCAS above us, and that's done. And okay, so let's go ahead and set flaps 2. So look here, it says flap 0 here. If you hit F7 once, it goes to flap 1 and it starts descending. Flaps 2 and it's slowly coming down. That is done. Okay, so let's go ahead and, oh no. Okay, good. I just moved the throttle and It's being nice to me. So we are ready for pushback. So let's go to Shift 2. Let's go outside the airplane, and we are going to, there's actually a little car here that sometimes you can see it come up and push the airplane back. So let's do that. So we're going to hit Shift P, and we aren't seeing the car this time. That's a shame. You'll see it when we turn off the airplane. Let's go ahead and turn on the engine. So Shift 4 brings up that panel. You center right click there, and that opens the protective cover, and use the mouse wheel to swing that over. And always check to make sure the engines are starting up. And so we're going to hit Shift 1, Shift 4. The engine is starting up. There we go. And we'll wait for that to get pretty much fully spooled up, and then we will then we'll turn on the second engine. And we don't want to overcook things here. We got a ways to go. We have some time. There we go. Engine 1 is up. Let's go to engine 2, Shift 4, right click, mouse wheel, and let's watch to make sure it's starting up. So we should see some activity here, and there it goes. Okay, let's turn off the virtual cockpit. And you notice, you can see the, if I didn't look at that before, but you can actually see the engines are stopped and see them start spooling up, and you can actually hear, I'm not sure if you can hear it, but you can hear the sound of the engines. So looking good. I'm going to stop the pushback with Shift P, and if you look out here, a little pushback card isn't showing. Maybe you'll find that on your own. So we are ready for taxi. We're going to turn on the taxi lights, Shift 2, taxi lights on, and we're going to go ahead and start taxiing. So on this airplane, turn off our brakes, make sure there's nothing out there. We're looking good. Now, I hope you've seen my videos of the 135 and 145. Those are another couple FeelTheres that I recommend purchasing. It's a different kind of airplane. It's much less automated than this. I mean, you really need to control the throttle and the rate of descent and such forth. It's, you know, something to be said for that, something to be said for this. But that is, if you want to work on skills that are, unless you're flying super automated airplanes in the real world, it's a great activity to actually go through that and learn how to fly that airplane. But that airplane is so unstable on the ground. Those 135 and 145 is so bad. I mean, like unrealistically bad. This airplane, they seem to have fixed those issues because it is much more stable. I mean, if you there goes a Learjet landing. If you aren't careful with that airplane, you could actually be all over the place and practically flip it over. So anyway, this one seems to have that problem fixed. Let's check the takeoff configuration. Shift 4. That's the classic Embraer clickable button. It's on every Embraer, the 100, the 300, these regional jets. They all have that button to check the takeoff configuration, which is nice. I mean, it shows you tells you whether your flaps are set right, whether your trims are right, whether there's any ICAS messages, everything's good. So let's go ahead and make sure there's nobody on final. Looking good. We're a little short on that. We should have gone one more taxiway, but you really want Y9 or Y11, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and taxi out there. Okay, parking brakes on, landing lights on, taxi lights off. Make sure the windshield heaters are on. So this is cold and dark logic. Everything should be off. We're looking good. So what we're going to do, let's go ahead and spool things up, and I'll talk you through it. So we're going to go up to 50% N1, and then we're going to go full throttle, and you want to go all the way up to arm the FADEX. And then what we're going to do is we're going to rotate at the rotation speed. Airspeed's alive. Airspeed's alive. We're going to look for an 80 knot cross check. 80 knots, everything good there. Approaching V1, we're going to pitch up. Our flight director's not on. That's really annoying. So let's just go ahead and pitch up. There we are at the rotation speed. We're going to pitch up to 11 degrees. Okay, positive rate. Let's bring our gear up. You can see our gear coming up right here. Let's watch it. Most important thing you can do is make sure your gear does what it's supposed to do. Okay, gear is up. Our climbing to 166 knots, looking good. We can go ahead and bring our flaps up with F5. So you can notice here, flaps are coming up. 170 knots, we're 600 feet AGL. There's the inner marker right there. So you can hear that beeping. I hope you can hear that. And we are looking good. So we are 820. So we're going to go ahead and set the autopilot in about 100 feet. And we are not climbing as steeply as we would like. So let's get our nose up. And you notice like the auto throttle's working. So as we pitch down to maintain our speed, it slowed down the engines. So that's on. So let's go ahead and autopilot, VNav, see that there, and heading. So now we are hands off. The airplane has control. Now the last thing we need to do is we're on manual speed, so it's going to set the throttles for 180 knots. We don't want that. We want to go ahead and go with the FMS speed. But be very careful with this. So we're going to click this here, 200 knots. Make sure that says 200. If that says 150, which I've had the experience with, you could be in big trouble because you're going to be just right over the ground. Now, notice that the altitude is climbing. That's good. There's the outer marker. Okay, the manual wants us to go ahead and come left to 190. So I'm using the right mouse button on the left side of the heading knob to come to 190. And I missed. There we go. And you notice, look at that, this airplane is a rocket ship. We're at 240 knots and climbing at 4,300 feet per minute. And we're not exactly light. It's just super impressive. So let's do our after takeoff checks. Our flaps are up. Our gear is up. We need to turn on the strobe. Turn off our landing lights. I'm sorry. And strobe should be on. And our landing lights are off, and we can turn off the APU now. And that's very loud. I'm always happy to turn that off. Good. Looking good. So let's check our settings. So we have heading mode on. We're turning left to 190. We have flight level change mode on, so that's controlling our climbing. So if you look here, shift 3, and we hit flight plan. So we're shooting for 240 knots at Hafner. 240 knots at Hafner at flight level 198. So, and that's what the airplane's going to do. I mean, we really don't have to do anything other than sort of fly the airplane right. Let the airplane fly itself. Now let's look over here to the left. That's the airport we just took off from. That's Dulles. And once we are to the left of it, we're going to go ahead and fly direct to Hafner, and I'll show you how to do that. Looking good. We're still at 3,500 feet per minute at 10,000 feet. We can go ahead and turn off the passenger seatbelt signs. And we have our APU off. Landing lights are done. Flaps are done. Let's go to our perf data and check our fuel on board. So shift 3, perf data. We're still going to have 3,400 pounds of fuel remaining at the destination. So we're still good there. So no issues with, we didn't burn too much fuel. I think it's a pretty common thing, at least in GA, for guys to, they pick up a new airplane, they go and they run it for an hour and checking all the systems to make sure they're safe, and then forget to put more fuel in because they burn it all out. So, and then end up crashing from fuel starvation. So we are now left of there, so let's go ahead and fly direct to Hafner. So to do that, you hit Shift 3 to bring up the MCDU, and we're going to hit Flight Plan, and we have nothing here. We're going to hit Hafner, that loads it there, and we're going to click it again, and it says now direct to Hafner, and you can do this with any direct waypoint along the way, and to activate it, it's still provisional here. We're going to hit Activate. Now, you notice here we're still in heading mode, so let's turn that off. We're going to go to FMS mode. I'm sorry, we're going to go to nav mode. There we go. Now it says LNAV is active. And if it's still set heading mode, we could actually go and intercept the path here. But we're so close to it, we're 0.1 nautical miles left of the waypoint. So we're in good shape. We don't actually need to do anything. Now let's look around the cockpit. You can see here where the fadecs are automatically adjusted to the climb power. It was in takeoff, but now it's in climb, and when we get up to cruise, this is going to change to CRZ. So everything is looking good. Airplane has set the power and pitch to 290 knots. We're climbing at 3,000 feet per minute, 2,900. We're looking good. So let's go ahead and speed up the simulation just to get to the juicy parts. Now, you can bring up this panel by right-clicking, and that shows you a zoomed-in version. Now, TOC is top of climb, so the FMS is predicting we're going to hit the top of climb at that level. And we are probably going to hit it right on because we're already at 20,000 feet almost. Looking sharp. So our auto throttles are on. Autopilot is on. Speed is being controlled by the airplane, by the FMS. We're in LNAV mode, and there we are. We're starting to level off. And you notice our speed, it's going to take us up because we chose the max speed. It's going to take us up just short of 320 knots, which is our what it's going to allow us to do at this level. So there we go. Looking sharp. And let's see. So we're flying direct to Hafner. We just made our right turn. Okay. Now in the manual, another error it has, it says when you're 100 nautical miles from GVE, you need to start doing some more changes. Well, the maximum we're ever from GVE is 30 nautical miles. So I think they meant 10 nautical miles, which feels about right. So cross out 100 and write down 10. So we're about 10 nautical miles out. We're going to slow things down again and go ahead and start programming some more things in the FMS. Okay. Okay, so shift 3 to bring up the flight plan. And we are going to, so they say Embraer Papa X-ray Juliet Golf, your assigned runway at Raleigh-Durham is 23 right. Cross Aldam below 10,000 at 250 knots. So let's go ahead and set everything up. So we're going to hit nav, and we're going to hit arrival, and we're going to punch in our runway. So it's 23 right, and we're going to use the 23 right ILS, and we're going to set the approach transition for PRSTN. And then we have SBV4, which is correct. And we're going to go arrival, insert, which puts it on here, and then we're going to hit activate. So now we have it in there. So, okay, now let's look at the flight plan. Now look here. We now have a discontinuity, and the reason we have a discontinuity is because it's flying all the way to KRDU and then it goes to PRSTN, which is wrong. We don't want to go to the airport. We want to go to PRSTN from Billa. So let's go ahead and fix that. The way you do that is you load into the scratch pad PRSTN there, and then you click on RDU and it replaces RDU with PRSTN, and now it's correct. So no problems. Looking good. Now, we have some crossing restrictions. At PRSTN, we want to be at about 180 knots, just because we're getting so close to the airport. So 180, and we want to put a slash. So the format is speed / altitude. We don't have an altitude. We're just going to let the autopilot choose the FMS choose the altitude, but we're going to set the speed. So let's click that there, 180 knots. Good. Now, as we're getting close to Raleigh-Durham, we're going to want to be at 9,000, as we said here. Let's bring this puppy up. So it's 9,000 feet at Billa, so let's make sure that's right. And we're going to want to be at 220 knots at Billa. So let's go ahead and do that. 220 / 9,000 feet. And we're going to set that for Billa. There we go, 220 knots, 9,000 feet. And then if you look at the chart, for Aldan, We want to be at 10,250. So let's go ahead and punch that in. 100. I'm sorry, it's the opposite. 250 on the speed slash 10,000 feet. There we go. And it's on the next page. No, it's on this page. Aldan. Boom. There we go. And that will affect our profile. So let's go ahead and hit activate. And boom, all done there. And now let's go ahead and set our V speeds. You know, it's pretty early in the flight to be doing this stuff, but you know, we're flying single pilot. We've got it going as fast as we can. We're very close to our destination. You know, let's get everything programmed. You really want to be ahead of the game when you're flying an airplane like this, especially single pilot. So let's go to perf and perf data. And let's go to our landing page. Okay, notice I'm clicking there until we get to landing page. And our density altitude is 512, that's fine. Our VREF is going to be 126. So that's the number we want to be over the numbers on the runway. So basically, when we're about to touch down, we want to touch down at 126. Our approach speed is 131. So the last few miles, we want to be at that speed. And our VAC, which is our final segment, single engine navigation speed, or whatever it is going to be, since we burn off some fuel, is down to 184 instead of 189. That's VFS. And VAC is 152. Boom. So now we have our speed set, and that's going to show up on the tape as we start descending. So let's see what we got here. This little guy here is our top of descent. Okay? Very important. You need to set your altitude to a number basically low by the airport before you hit the top of descent, or it won't start descending. So they ask us to set it at 2200. So let's go ahead and crank this down all the way to 200. There we go. And now when we hit the top of descent, the LNAV is actually going to take over and fly us all the way down. If you leave it at 220, it's going to keep us there, which is not what we want. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and I'm sorry, I left the chart up there, but I think you saw everything I did. So we've got our, there we go. So we have our altitude set for 2,200 feet. We're looking good. Okay, so we'll be at our top of descent in a few minutes. Let's go ahead and speed things up again. Now, in the manual, they tell you, oh, do a manual approach. Let's not do an auto land. Well, that's boring as heck. If you want to do a manual approach, go watch my 135, 145 videos and fly it with this airplane, okay? Or even the Phenom video will show you how to do it. I find the Autoland to be more interesting because there's not a lot of airplanes in FSX that have Autoland, and it works very well. You'll see. But let's fly an Autoland. So there's some restrictions you need to do here to make sure the Autoland works. So the first thing you need to do, and we're going to configure everything, is we need to have the barometers correct on both sides. So standard, okay? And we're not going to change that. So that's very important. And we'll go through all the settings as we get closer. And maybe I should pull up the chart. Let me pause for a second. So it's page 54 is the Autoland settings. So you can go ahead and follow along with this if you have the chart, if you have the document. It's page 54. It tells you everything you need to do. So you need to enable Autoland on the MCDU, and I'll show you how to do that. And Shift 3, menu, miscellaneous menu, setup, Autoland enable. They tell you if you want to do a category 2 Autoland, it's you disable it, which I find very odd, but that's generally fine. So let's go ahead and go to normal speed. You notice the airplane pitched down. It's now following the descent profile. You can see there we're right on the path down to SBV at 13,846. Okay, speed is coming down. The goal is to be at 290 knots at SBV, so it's really looking good. Pretty impressive, and the airplane's going to fly it all the way down until we get until basically we're on the runway and we actually apply the brakes. So Autoland, so we need to enable setup on the MCDU. So we did that. Both pilots and co-pilot's guidance panel minimums knob is set to radar altimeter, okay? And the way you do that is there's actually a hotspot to switch back and forth. And it's not moving for me. But this here is the, let's see. Nope, not working. Well, anyway, we're on radar altimeter is 200 and radar altimeter is 200. And that's, so those need to be identical. And then we need to have nav1 and nav2 set for the ILS. We need to have the course set to the runway heading in flaps 5, okay? And then it'll auto land. So I will show you that as we get closer. So I want to show you something that's very important here. It's very important that you check these altitudes because I've seen this go haywire in a couple situations. Does this make sense? 10,000 at Al down, 13,000 here, 10,000 at Al down, 9,000 here, 3,000 there. 2,200, 1,500, 459. That looks good. And it's telling us to check the barometer. We know we're good because we have standard pressure. So that looks good. But you can actually go here and zoom this up. So let's zoom out a little bit. So that's a nice smooth descent. There's really no issues there. You really want to check that because if you go Billa, then up to here and then down to there, you're going to have problems. So don't get tricked by that one. I've been tricked by that before the first time, and I had to do some quick shuffling to fix that. Okay, so we're about to SPV. We're going to turn left and start coming to PRSTN, which is the final approach fix, and then we're going to turn right and acquire the ILS and fly right in. Let's turn off the airports. I don't think we need that. It's a little cluttery with that. There we go. Airports are off. Okay, so let's go ahead and speed things up a little bit more. Simulation rate, 4 times speed. It's an airplane out there. You can see it on the TCAS. Hopefully we don't run into him. You can actually go and set holds here. It's pretty cool. You can go nav, hold, and say, oh, I want to set a hold on Bodley. And you can insert, and then watch this. You can hit activate, and then there's, you can't really see it there. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. No, you can't see it. Anyway, it does a hold. You can see it on the chart as you get closer, and it'll actually do the circling for you at that point. You can set a teardrop entry, a parallel entry, or a standard entry, which is cool. To remove that, you just hit delete, and you click clear Bodley. Let's see. That's not what we want. Delete Bodley. There we go. And that deletes the hold. The next time it'll delete the waypoint, but we don't need to do that. So if you look out the window, there's our cloud bank. I put some really heavy clouds. So we're going to be in heavy, heavy stuff in a little bit. Let's go ahead and keep zooming in here. So there is the hold. That's strange. It looks like it didn't clear. Oh, we need to activate. So there we go. So it cleared up. It removed that hold. That's pretty slick stuff. I haven't actually played with it. I don't know if it actually works, but my suspicion is that it does works. But, you know, so one of these days I'll play with it. Simulation rates. We're getting pretty quickly in here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start getting our speed down. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my throttle to 0. As you can see, that does nothing. So, but we want to be at PRSTN at 180 knots, and we're nowhere near that. So look here, you can see that speed break coming up. And let's bring our speed down. We're supposed to be 180 knots. We're still at 220. This airplane is really does not slow down well. So you need these speed brakes. Hit the slash key on the keyboard. Once we get below 200 knots, we can go flaps 1, and that'll help slow us down. I believe it's flaps 2. The speed brake won't work anymore below that. So, okay, almost to 200. F7 once to bring our flaps down to flaps 1. and we are looking good. Let's set our auto brake. We're going to set our auto brake for medium. And let's go ahead and set our nav radios. So radio, we're going to set our nav for 111.7, 111.7 for nav 1, 111.7 for nav 2. Good. We're going to set our, now next thing we want to do is we're going to turn that off. We're going to turn off our, we're going to hit PREV. And what that does is that arms that actually is basically the same as approach, except for it allows us to modify. We're still in FMS mode, but allows us to modify our course. So the course of the runway is 234 degrees. So let's go ahead and do that. So 234. And then we need to go over here. Very important, or the Autoland will not work. Let's go down to 234 here. Now we're good. Okay. Our speed is down to 180. I'm going to hit F7 again and turn off my auto brakes, my speed brakes. There we go. Looking good. We've got flaps 2. You notice those speed brakes come right down. And let's get it. We're getting close to this airport. So let's check to see if we're in range of the ILS. So the way you do that is you go here and you click nav 1 and we'll hear, there we go, hear that? That's the beeping of the nav 1 radio. So we are in range, and you can see there that little blue line is the ILS for nav 1. So we're basically right on the glide slope, but we need to get underneath it. So let's go back to shift 4. We're going to turn that off or it'll drive us crazy. And look at that, we're about to go IMC big time. 180 knots, looking good. So let's go ahead and once we start our turn, we're going to go down to, we're going to turn off the FMS speed control and start controlling it ourselves. And if you recall, the way you do that is you click this guy and that turns it to blue mode here from magenta, and then we'll be able to adjust things manually. And we're going to really want to start slowing this airplane down so we can get our flaps all the way down for the auto landing. So here we go, 12.5. Let's go to 5 nautical miles. We're going to start our right turn in a few seconds. There we go. And there's our turn. And there goes our visibility. I'm going to click this. We're going to go blue. And let's go down to 160 knots. Our next notch of flaps is at 170. So as soon as we're down to, notice that, we're acquiring the localizer. Look at that. And we're 170. Let's go flaps 3. Looking good. Checking the Autoland list, we need Autoland enabled. Minimum set to 8 to radar altimeter, which we did. The nav 1 and nav 2 are set. Let's double check that. 111.7 is correct. And we need to set the course knobs to the runway landing. We need to be flaps 5, and we are not flaps 5 yet. So we need to get our speed down. So flaps 4 is 150. So let's go ahead and we're going to bring down to V approach. And if you recall, our approach speed is 131 knots, and it won't let us down there until we get our flaps down more. And so now it'll let us down. There we go. And let's go ahead and go flaps 5 and watch this. Flaps 5. Watch up here. And we need our gear down. As soon as we start seeing this start coming down, we can go ahead and drop our gear. Speed's a little low. Let's put it up to 131. There comes the vertical component of the ILS. Now we can't see anything here. We are completely blacked out. So we better pray that this ILS system works. And as soon as we acquire that, we're level at 2,200 feet. Hopefully, as soon as this needle gets to here, we're going to start going down that glide path, and we're going to get Autoland. There we go. Autoland 1 is armed. That's what we want to see. There we go. And we're starting to descend. We're on Autoland. We are 1,700 feet AGL. Let's check to make sure we're not missing anything. We need our landing lights on. Landing lights on. Taxi lights off. That's good. Let's turn on our APU. Flaps are down. Gear is down, 3 green. Let's bring our speed down to 126. Okay, APU is fully started, almost fully started. Throttle leveler is in, throttle lever is 0. There we go, we got some nice rain, still can't see anything. We're 11,000 feet AGL and we can't see anything, but we're gonna make a safe landing. So let's bring that speed down, 127 knots. That looks good. And you notice where the flare is loaded, a line is loaded. And let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. You can see we are really close to the airport. 700 feet, we still can't see anything. Now once we touch down, we are going to hit F2 a couple times and hold it down to run our reverse thrusters. And then once the auto brakes turn off, we are going to start using the brakes manually. We are 470 feet. Now we can see the runway lights. So we are almost to minimums and we should be good to go. $350. Copilot's gonna tell us we're at minimums almost. Actually, that's the airplane, not the Copilot. And let's just go ahead and let it land. Now we're over the inner marker. And look at that. Flare right on the center line. Amazing. And let's go ahead and use the using the reverse thrusters and 80 knots. We can go ahead and turn that off and we can go ahead and start using our brakes. Brakes are off and that's how easy it is. Crazy impressive that that airplanes can do this in the real world, and it's crazy impressive that guys like FeelThere can actually program this to work. Really, really well done, guys. You know, it's funny. It's like this is such a good model of the airplane to see things like they have in the document where it's just completely messed up is really somewhat disappointing. They actually didn't get that stuff right. So let's turn off our APU. Turn off the engines. So shift 4. And turn off the batteries. Turn off all our lights. Anyway, that's it. That's the FeelThere Embraer 175 in Autoland. I hope you like that. I thought it was. I think it's a really impressive airplane. Great systems. You know, there's issues in this manual, so you just got to deal with that. I recommend you follow along with the video, make notes in the document where I told you where to fix things, and you should be good to go. Hope that helps. Let me know what other videos you want to see. I'm thinking about doing the Airbus next. I've heard that's crappy, the FeelThere Airbus, but might be fun. So anyway, thank you for following along, and I will see you in the next video.